All right, now we're slowing down. We're getting into alpha brainwave state. We're getting into strategic thinking, learning, reflection, planning, mapping out the future. And again, I want to take you around the world, tell you a story. In this case, I'm going to take you to Shishui National Game Park in South Africa, oldest game park in South Africa. I was there about 5 years ago for a wedding, spectacularly beautiful. After the wedding, you may have detected, I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. So my friends went out on a driving safari, and I was like, can we go on a walking safari? So this gentleman took me walking through the bush to, be part of the food chain, which was interesting. And we were looking for birds and animals, and we found some, but not really any of the big ones. And I was like, maybe we could try to find some lions or something. He's like, well, then let's go to the watering hole, because that's where the lions go to eat, other animals like us. And he's carrying the smallest gun I've ever seen in my life. Don't even know what it was for. But anyway, we walked through this watering hole, and he took me up onto this little mound of earth right here, over on the right-hand side up top. And I stood up on that mound of earth underneath that tree, and I looked to my left, and I saw that. A beautiful rhino, probably about 20 yards away. It locked in on me. The ears locked in, because they hear better than they see. I froze, my guide froze, rhino froze. We're staring at each other, hanging out. I take a photo, click, really loud. My guide's like, tourists are idiots. And I think he used a word called Mzungu, which is stupid white tourist. But anyway, moved back out of that zone and to safety, obviously, because I'm here today, and was flipping through my shots at night, and I got through, and I saw this, and I was like, oh my God, what an unbelievable experience. That was incredible. I cannot believe I didn't see the second rhino. Do you see it on the bottom right? Like 5 feet away from me, so I was taking the shot. The other thing I completely missed was you can't see it? I'll show you, hang on. It's right here. See it? It was like, oh, wow. That's exactly what I thought. I also missed these beautiful parrots on the tree to my left. I was locked in on this, the horn. Good idea, right? Horn, threat, danger, you're going to die. So here's why this is an issue. Over the last 3 years, what have we been faced with? COVID-19 headlines, on and on and on and on and on. Challenges around residential schools, heartbreaking. Challenges around Black Lives Matter. We have to eliminate systematic barriers in our society that prevent anyone from reaching their true human potential. Problematic, right? It's been so bad you probably forgot about the murder hornets. That was an actual thing, right? So we have been confronted with threat after threat after threat after threat after threat, which continuously gathers our attention and locks it into one specific issue. Anxiety provoking. That's why we're seeing anxiety skyrocket. It's up like 20, 30% since the beginning of the pandemic. 45% of our population is experiencing burnout right now because the pressure on our psychology has been relentless, and it is not going to get better. So what is our job as people who want to help others and create a better world and put people into safe homes? Our job is to expand our thinking, because when you're confronted with a threat, rhinoceros horn, COVID-19 headline, what happens is your eyeball actually changes shape to lock into the threat so you can see it better. The problem with that is you lose your peripheral thinking. You then lose your peripheral vision, which as a result eliminates your ability to think peripherally as well. You cannot even consider the second challenge / rhino, and you don't see the opportunities in a situation. And your job is to understand, what is the challenge? What are the secondary challenges? What are the opportunities? So if you can help your clients expand their thinking, protect their peripheral vision, their peripheral thinking, greater opportunities are able to be considered. When you are in beta, threat, hustle, focus, execute mode, you cannot think like this. So your ability to be calm, cool, and collected in a meeting, in a presentation, in an open house, in a negotiations, is critical, because the people around you who you serve will match your intensity level. And so you can help people get into this state to be able to reach their true human potential in the moment, that state being alpha states. That is localized to the frontal lobe of the brain on MRI. You can actually, so like if you look at someone who's thinking hard, what do? Often they rub their forehead, because that's where that type of thinking actually occurs. And we can get into this state by keeping our body calm. Unlike focused execution, where we want lots of physical activity, when it comes to alpha strategic thinking, reflection and learning, we want to be calm, cool, and collected and chill, like Adam's demonstrating metacognition and strategic thinking on the beach. How do I hit stuff with stuff is the extent of his thinking there. But it's a good image that shows that stillness is a superpower. When you're doing your planning, when you're doing your thinking, when you're doing your reflection, when you're doing your deconstructions, we are still. We are journaling. We are in an environment that is calm. When we're trying to focus and execute, our energy is massive and we're moving as much as possible. It's the opposite. The mind is reflective. So 10 years ago, right now, we were moving houses. That's hard for us, not for you. That's hard for us. When you move a house, it's hard. Judith was finishing grad school. I was changing jobs. I was going to the Olympics to go commentate for CTV in London. I was launching my first book, and Ingrid was 2, so I hadn't slept in 2 years. And she went to daycare. She picked up a cold. I got the cold. She got a cold and got better. I ended up with viral myocarditis and hospitalized. So that's me in the Toronto General Cardiac Ward, where I worked also at the time. Super embarrassing checking yourself into your own hospital, by the way, for the record. But when I was there, I had 4 days to sit in the bed, not do much, because I was like incapacitated because my heart wasn't working. And the gentleman next to me was dying, which put some context around my thoughts. And I asked myself, what do I want? And the answer was, because I was still and thinking, was I want to get out of here and never come back again as a client. Love being there as a researcher, not so much interest in being in the hospital as a parent or as a patient. Then the question was, why? And the answer was, because I've got a little kid and I need to make sure that I'm around for her for as long as possible. Then the question is, how? And my answer to that was, well, I should obviously register for Ironman. So, no, not the rational thought when you're in the cardiac ward. So I pulled out my computer, logged onto the internet, registered. The fact I had my computer with me at the cardiac ward, without question, why I was in the cardiac ward in the first place. That irony is not lost on me, but managed to register and 12 months later finished my first Ironman. Well, don't clap. An 80-year-old lady went by me at the finish line, okay? Nothing to write home about on that one. Point being, though, is that when we pause, when we are still, and we ask ourselves strategic questions, we are able to elevate our performance. We are able to put ourselves on the right trajectory. Research shows that when we ask what, why, and how, before a meeting, before a project, before a task, you improve your performance 3 to 5% on subsequent tasks. That might not seem like very much, but let's think about compound performance, right? Just like compound interest, we do compound performance. Micro wins everywhere we possibly can. All right, and then the final piece of the puzzle, much like we leverage the power of music, we can leverage the power of nature. There's a reason why when we are in the mountains, when we are in the trees, that we feel good as humans. When we were at the beginning of a pandemic in lockdown, and my daughter Ingrid was at home, away from her friends, no activities, doing homeschool, all that sort of stuff, you can see here, she was not happy. And she told me what she thought of me and the world, and F-bomb, F-bomb, F-bomb. I was like, wow, you're 10, where'd you learn that? Your mom? I was like, okay, anyway, so... So we went outside and went for a walk, and that's Ingrid a couple minutes later. She picked up a stick. I kept my distance, took a photo, and just kept walking through the trees, through the woods. I said nothing. And this is her 10 minutes later. A completely different person. You give people an opportunity to live near a park, to have a backyard, to have windows that look outside with trees. You give people a chance to have this in their life. And when we are connected with nature, interesting things happen, because in your visual field, there are what are known as fractal patterns that pull you out of beta mode and drop you into alpha mode. Fractal patterns, which if you look around this room, don't exist in indoor environments. It's all right angles, circles, and triangles, right? It's all squares. Outside, it's all fractals and chaotic, which drops you into alpha mode when you look at leaves, when you look at trees, when you look at rivers, and these are embedded in our body. The image on the left here is crystals in metal. The image on your right is your lungs. Fractal patterns exist in the heart, and they exist in the brain. We are not separate from nature. We are one and the same with nature, and you connect people with nature in their homes and provide people with the opportunity to look outside or get near a park or go to a place that makes them happy and get into this state. So I would love for all of you to do this as well. Don't be afraid to take a moment and just go to the local park before or after a meeting, before or after an open house, and just chill out and practice what is known as forest bathing. Research on this is quite powerful.